Hello to my American Horror Story historians. My name is EJ Marino, and in this video, while it is a bit late, we still need to dive into American Horror Stories Season 2, Episode 4. Yeah, we're talking about Milkmaids. So I want to first off apologize for my video coming out a bit late, but I also kind of don't need to because American Horror Stories dropped a lot later than usual. I am there when it drops at midnight to usually review it, and I passed out early to then find out that it was really delayed today. Why is that? Don't really know for sure, but I'll take it because my episode's going to be a bit late, but I'm actually excited to dive into this very disgusting episode. Holy hell, I saw things in this episode I don't think I was prepared for. The pus, the blood, the heart eating. I was truly kind of shook by this episode. Each and every turn really had me intrigued. Is this kind of my personal favorite stuff? No, mass hysteria, disease storylines aren't really my favorite one because I've lived through it for the past couple years. But yeah, it wasn't one of my personal favorites. This isn't one I will go back to, but I did appreciate the acting. Well, again, anything next to Bella Thorne's acting was always going to be impressive. But yes, the acting here was a bit interesting. Cody Fern really did add an extra layer to his performance that we were expecting, and I was not expecting the turns he took as well. Yeah, I liked what was presented here. I liked the story, especially that weird sapphic relationship that I did not expect between Celeste and Delilah. I was just like, oh, can we get more of this? Like, every time they cut to Preacher Man and Cody Fern, I was just like, okay, Pastor and Mr. Thomas, like, y'all are not intriguing. Cody Fern was top billed for this episode, and I'm like, should he have been? I guess he's the biggest name, but there could have been more with the story department for his character. He was a pretty bland, generic, Puritan kind of dude. I really liked Celeste and Delilah. I really wanted to get into them a lot more than the episode offered, but that's the good thing about short little films like this, little short episodes, where I would rather want more than be left like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe that they gave me that horribleness. No, I like that I'm craving more. I like that I want the story expanded on because it really offers that, though with the ending and how dark it is, don't think they could have ever made a sequel to this. Alright, enough of this little recap section, let's just get straight into the episode. For this section, I usually do, well, the episode begins, but I don't really want to go in order. I kind of just want to talk about what all just happened. But it does begin with a sex scene. The new pastor's coming into town, meeting the new girl of the farm, the girl of the reservation. I don't know what to call her. She's the sex worker of the area. Her name is Celeste, and she believes that she has a cure for smallpox. That if you just take a little lick, a little suck of her pussy little wounds, that you could be healed. Well, the pastor man said, no, wench, you ain't getting me to suck that little nasty stuff. So of course he takes this and turns it into a crusade against her. There's like a funeral that they're at, and she decides to barge into that while he's like reading people to filth. We are like laying to rest Thomas's wife, who Thomas is Cody Fern's character, who has a young son. Yeah, those two are just trying to grieve, and she's coming up like, this pastor's a fake, he was with me last night, blah blah blah, and he's just like, this woman's a wench, she's evil, women are crazy. Yeah, I know it's hard for women in 2022, I know how society's been, but I could not have been in Puritan time woman. Like, this seems to be the hardest time period for a woman. Like, you sneeze wrong and they're like, burn her at the stake, she's a witch. I don't know how they did with it. Like, I'm actually surprised witch was not really something they went to. They kept going to like Satan and all that. Not really witchy. So let's go back to Celeste's character. She believes she's a healer, that she's being blessed by Saint Lazarus himself to give her some powers. So while she's feeling this way, you're really realizing that I don't know if she's a healer. I'm actually really intrigued by what you all think. Did her healing magic work? Was she really doing something, or was her friend Delilah a bit more accurate with, yeah, no, girl, that's just science. Like, sure, fine, okay, yeah, I'm more on the Celeste side than the Delilah side, or I'm more on the Delilah side than the Celeste side, but I would say I appreciate her healing, wanting to do good and just feeling like no one is paying attention to her, but she does get a little cuckoo crazy by the end, and I wasn't shocked by what happened. Since we have to deal with monkeypox in real life, this episode really came out at the right time because smallpox is a big thing. This small little area is getting ravaged by smallpox as a lot of things happened during this time period, so they are doing some fearful stuff. We have the Cody, Fern character dealing with his son, and then the pastor says, what are we going to do? What's the thing? And Mr. Thomas said, well, I had heard over there that they're like eating hearts to maybe feel better. Maybe that could be the route. And then he's shocked when the pastor goes full gung-ho with this plan. And I'm like, bro, you offered it up as a suggestion. Don't open the book if you are not liking the pages. Come on. So while all this is happening, Celeste decides, well, she doesn't decide. She ends up at Delilah's farm, and they start kind of growing closer to each other. Delilah is a milkmaid who has no time for this town. She is just on her own trying to survive, just trying to do her damn thing. Sadly, when she comes into contact with Celeste, as she says, everything she touches turns to poop anyways. So they start kind of developing a relationship. I really liked the turn that these two were going, where one was a woman of faith, where one was a woman of science, and where they could kind of mix. I really liked Our Lady J's script here. I thought she really added an element to that type of like at least that part of the story. The rest of the story wasn't really my favorite. Once we got into mass hysteria, burn the stake, we should all eat hearts, I was just like, I guess. I know this is true. I lived through a pandemic, but like it just got frustrating dealing with these people. During some of the Celeste and Delilah moments, we start to realize that maybe the the cowpox that they're dealing with could be a fix for the smallpox, so they start trying to like build up a vaccine. I love the early vaccination conversations here. It was really interesting to hear this kind of angle, again, dealing with what we dealt with, diving into this episode. I liked all those little details. So they think that they found a solution, but the town is full gung-ho about eating hearts. They had no time for the harlots, for the women saying what they need to say. So man, Pastor just knocks Delilah out and says, let's find Celeste. Let's end this. They think they have the magical milk, but that milk ain't gonna save them for what happens next. Pastor comes in and starts wreaking havoc. I mean, like to the point where Mr. Thomas, Cody Fern, thinks he's gonna stop him. He gets stabbed, and I'm like, oh my goodness, Cody Fern just straight up died. That's not where he dies. He dies in a second because he definitely needed to. Yeah, so we just basically see the big conclusion of this episode is when the pastor comes to fight with Celeste and Delilah. This leads to, sadly, Delilah getting killed, and I'm just like, oh my god, Delilah on the radio got killed because of the milkmaid, because of it was just frustrating watching everything unfold. This episode frustrated me in a lot of ways because I liked where the story was going, and I was just upset that it went down the exact route. Basically, mass hysteria has ruined everyone. Even though Cody Fern was like okay with everything, once he saw these lesbian relationship between Delilah and Celeste, he turns as well, starts trying to attack Celeste, blames her for everything. Delilah gets into the way and gets herself killed. And then basically Celeste then has to kill Cody Fern's character, and you think it's over. You think she's gonna go help her secret son, because surprise, Cody Fern's son, it was actually her kid the whole time. A twist I kind of saw coming, but I was intrigued by that. So the end, I thought we were going to get a kind of dark ending. Everyone's dead. They got the cure for everything. And she says, I am a milkmaid. And that little boy says, nah, tap, 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 stab. Nah, we can't deal with milkmaids. No, women who are close to the animals are dirty girls. And he stabs her, kills her, eats her heart. And I'm like, yo, is this boy like double vaxxed now? Like, did he take like Moderna 1 and Moderna 2? Because, okay, yeah, no, I was really like, I could not believe the ending. It was dark. It was sad just to see that mass hysteria and that weird religious stuff seeped into even this young boy's brain. Someone who I thought was going to be like a voice of reason turned out to even be corrupted by what was happening. It was sad to see, but it was kind of the ending I wanted from an AHS Stories. All right, everyone, that is it for my review of Milkmaids. I did enjoy this episode. It got frustrating, one, because I'm like dealing with all of this, like the smallpox, all this, blah, 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 and I'm like, this is all way too real. Maybe American Horror Stories dealt a little too real, but at least it wasn't like Cult where they're like, let's talk about politics and Trump by just having politics and Trump. And I'm like, no, like hopefully this, like I like the idea of a season talking about something, but it doesn't have to directly be that. Be artistic. Talk about real life modern stuff, but set it in a different period. That helps a lot. But I want to know what you thought of this episode. Were you a fan of the crazy milkmaid stuff? Were you into my review? Again, sorry it was a bit delayed, but the episode was delayed and then I had life stuff come up. Alright everyone, comment down below, subscribe to my channel because I make videos like this every single week, and give me a thumbs up if you did enjoy. Alright everyone, let's talk about the latest episode of American Horror Stories down below.